and why not sustainability question? So let me just answer this. So why ELT classrooms is the question that I asked. Why should we discuss it? So I told you that NEP 2020, it gives a lot of focus on global citizenship and the employability competence. So it's very important that we need to really satisfy certain conditions that are mentioned in NEP 2020 as an academic institute and as a person who is involved in educating others. So what is this global citizenship? You can think about it and understand it. Employability competence is the employability skills that we talk about. Then language and culture being inseparable. We know that when we talk about language, we are talking about the culture of that language as well. So if I want to learn Tamil, I have to know quite a bit about the Tamil culture as well. If you want to learn French, you need to know a little bit of French culture as well. So it's very interesting, that kind of cultural aspects of language and that linguistic aspects of culture working in both directions is very, very interesting. So as culture is part of language studies, or when we study language, culture invariably becomes a part of that. We need to engage in sustainability dialogues. How and why, I'll tell you later. Why I've told you, but how, I'll tell you later. Availability of informative resources like authentic materials, plenty of them, which a mathematics professor might not be able to use. Not because he or she does not have the imagination or creativity to use that, or higher order thinking skill to do that, but just because it is more appropriate, or it can be appropriated into the English language classroom more effectively than it could go into a physics classroom. Okay, so we can use these authentic materials as such, or we can adapt them for being suitable to our level of students or the cultural context of our classroom. Certain sequences from films we use in our classrooms, but not all film sequences can be used. From the same film, we trim things and show the students because we have something called cultural propriety. Deeper conversation. This is where I fix my argument. Deeper conversations and connect with learners. Usually, see, I work in a technical institute, and I've heard this from many of the students that people at humanities department, they are so accessible and approachable. So we are all celebrities in that way, because you will also understand that we are quite into that humane kind of interaction segment where students can actually feel very free to talk to us and we can talk about anything. So that kind of a deeper conversation and vast kind of topics that we have around us, being very much available digitally and otherwise as well to transact into the classroom, we establish better connect with the students. So these are the reasons why ELT classrooms can actually engage sustainability dialogues. And moreover, English is the language for international communication. So it's not just a library language in India, as ML Tiku once pointed out, that it's the library language. But beyond that, it has become something like a passport to the world. So if you want to know something, you have to just, even if you are depending on Google translation or whatever, it comes in English, so that, as I said, the majority of knowledge is available in English and is possible to access in English. Okay, so we need to understand that we have more importance as language instructors, and maybe a little more importance for us in this aspect of bringing in sustainability questions into the classrooms. So it's just not in one kind of role that we belong to, but we belong to a few other roles as well. One is as a language instructor, very evident kind of a role. The second thing, as a person who is actually committed to make a change in the society, not just in philosophical terms, but actually very practically. The other one is like a facilitator who is enabling that kind of change in the students as well. So one is actually you change and you become a source of inspiration or a model for others, but at the same time you are actually an enabler for getting that change transacted into the student. Now, there are certain employability concerns. Definitely, there are certain ones, and there are many multinational companies which are looking for employees. Even MA students and PhD holders and all work as language experts in Wipro and Google and all. Language is quite important, and English language students will have a lot of how do we put it, a lot of things to offer in that context. Just 1 second. Yeah, so this employability concern begins with the existence of many companies coming to recruit people, and language professionals always have a role in such companies. So just don't think about language professionals going to multinational companies alone. We need to think about, see, I can't just detach myself from National Institute of Technology, as a teacher who have my learners who are doing BTech and MTech and all. So when we think about them as well, they're all going for their placement, or they're all going for higher studies whatsoever. Always there is a concern with language. Always there is a concern with English language proficiency that they have. And trade and commerce transcending geographical boundaries again assert some kind of international type of communication, and the language is in fact in English. Analytical ability and problem solving skills are actually quite foregrounded these days by companies. So when I was working very closely with the placement cell a few years ago, I understood that a lot of changes have happened in the way that employers perceive this notion of employability. Grades and marks are not being valued quite a lot like in the past. Now, more skills are supposed to be within this construct of 21st century skills, rather than just focusing on the technical skills of these graduates. They also focus on the other aspects, the social, emotional aspects and all. And then they check the ability to address local and global issues, and then find out solutions at local level and global level as well. So it's all about various levels of cognitive engagement that we have. That becomes a concern of the employer these days. And critical thinking and creativity, I have already talked about it. And then social and emotional skills. So these are the employers' concern these days, be it a multinational company, be it elsewhere. People just check whether we have these abilities, or we have these skills within us, so that we can tackle multiple issues. So it's not just that you are technically very sound kind of a graduate that you get into the best company. No, you need to have certain other skills as well to be a good team player, to demonstrate your empathy, your social and emotional skills. These are all very important kind of constructs. Now, this leads to what we call as global citizenship. We need to be critical thinkers, socially conscious and responsible individuals. We should have awareness of global and local issues. we need to be empathetic and thinking kind of citizens. It's not just like being empathetic to someone. See, I become empathetic to my students, but it should not just make them take me for granted, that they can just be absent from my classroom and then say some story, and then I believe that and I give them attendance, or I let them pass their examination. No, you need to be quite thinking about where to draw that boundary of empathy as well. It's a little paradoxical kind of statement that I'm making, but then I know what I'm saying, and it's very important that we think when we do something, and we think after we do something. And it is always better to be critically engaged in our own thinking, and our own decision making, about our own decision making, and critically questioning it. We need to be curious and lifelong learners. I told you initially, when I talk about all these things, we need to think about us as learners, as teachers. Both sides we need to take and think. We are not know it all. I mean, I am not, and then I don't think there is one person who knows everything. So every single day we learn, and then there are so many things that make us curious about things, and we become lifelong learners. And then active partakers in societal change. This is what I said. I started my career back in 1995, I can say. And then I'm just giving you an example. I didn't start in 1995. And then I started preparing an interesting set of materials, which I use for the students even now. There are people who proudly proclaim that, but then that is not what is responding to change. And even there are people who say that I change my materials every single week. That also necessarily may not constitute what we call as societal change. We need to be in constant interaction with what is happening in the world, be it the crisis in Ukraine, be it the crisis in India, be it the crisis anywhere, or be it something that is quite wonderful that is happening elsewhere in the world. Whatever it is, any kind of advancements, any kind of new piece of information should come to us, and we need to actively get engaged with that. And being teachers, here I'm stressing the importance of teachers responding to these kind of changes. We need to think, how can I bring that into my language classroom? And when we think about bringing something into language classroom, it's not about, I told you that literary studies could be brought in, but it's not just about you going and talking about psychoanalytic criticism and Sigmund Freud and Lacan, or no, it's not just that. You can actually lecture about it quite explicitly, but that is not what is effective. You need to tailor make that into the language curriculum or the syllabus that you are teaching. You need to know, how can I integrate the language components into this, or communication components using this theme? We are just stepping one, we are taking a step ahead of what is called as content-based instruction. It's not just content-based instruction that I'm talking about. Taking content about different social issues or whatsoever, and placing it in the English classroom, and giving some practical kind of exercise or task for the learners, can actually let them experience the change, or at least experience the that process of being a part of the change. This is my argument. And continuously responding to the changes in their social system. So learners or the global citizens will be actively and continuously responding to the changes that is around their ecosystem. And this ecosystem is not just the trees and the animals and everything. It's about the humans and all non-human things, all thinking things and all non-thinking things around us. So how are we actually in great conversation with these changes is something that is helping us to bring in the sustainability questions into our classrooms. And how can we be the bias breakers? A global citizen is never a biased person. So you need to really think about it. I need to really think about it. How much bias do I nurture in my mind? It could be caste-based one. It could be gender-based one. It could be, region-based one or religion-based one. It could be language-based one. Anything. So certain language, certain people from certain linguistic background can actually learn languages very easily. May not be, maybe. You need to think critically there. You cannot buy one stance and say that this is the absolute truth. You cannot just consume something as somebody has persuaded you to just consume it. You can't just consume that. You need to have your own checks and searches and other things. Think about a medicine that you buy. Most of you might be googling it and seeing what are the side effects and things like that, or maybe you will be just confirming whether this is the same medicine. Many of us do that. And some symptoms, some health issues that we have, many of us google and try to see. And some people, when they do the google search, go for the first option and stop it there. But some people will check for different possibilities and analyze. Or if you are going to buy a car or buy a vehicle, you will be checking which is the best model and go for a comparison and contrast and all. Do we do that? Because these all have something to do with the economics of our life. Okay, but do we do that when it becomes something that is associated with our value system? Think about it. It's a big question to think about. Whenever we are associating something with economics, finance, we think about things, we compare things, we contrast things using multiple resources, be it persons, be it sites, be it newspapers, whatever, multiple mediums we use. But when it is about value system, we usually take one stance, whichever is quite applicable to our way of thinking. That is where we need to think about different perspectives, cross-cultural perspectives, or interpersonal kind of communication should be a little more active in that part, so that we can become the bias breakers. Now, these are the core competencies of social and emotional learning: self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, social awareness. I'm not going to read out everything, but if you look at the slides, you can see that quite a lot of things are about our emotional intelligence and competence. Okay, so ethical responsibility, evaluation, reflection. So people who are familiar with the Bloom's revised taxonomy, you might be able to make a better sense of how this is like fitting into the cognitive realms, from from concrete to the abstract level, from the more cognitive to the metacognitive level. We can think through it. Why I brought in social and emotional learning is that the whole exercise of engaging in sustainability dialogues happen within this paradigm, or this is the purpose for being engaged in sustainability dialogues in an ELT classrooms. Without that kind of a dialoguing, you cannot, or I cannot, bring in any of these global competencies in the learners, and neither can we be. Think about it. I'm not making a very stark kind of criticism on us teachers, but we need to really think about our own teaching practices and how much change do I bring into my literature class or to my language class, and what makes me a different teacher from others. Not to get scored anywhere, not to apply for a teacher award, but as a person, how do I evaluate myself? Do I bring in any kind of newness in my classroom? And if I bring in newness, what is the crux of that newness, or what is the content of that newness, and how is it being perceived by the learners? These are all questions that we need to think about our own way of teaching. Now, to make it more concrete, how can we incorporate sustainability dialogues in language classrooms? So these dialogues in the ELT classrooms, we need to talk about interdisciplinarity. Teaching should go beyond just the teaching of grammar, pronunciation, spelling, vocabulary, and listening, speaking, reading, writing skills. And we should not just reduce language teaching to the training of these skills and abilities in the students. Yes, They should be there because these are the things that constitute language. But remember, culture is also a part of language. So shouldn't we bring in intercultural competence as well, which then will talk about a lot more issues. Why certain cultures are different from certain other cultures in certain aspects. Why the linguistic rules are quite different in certain parts of the same place or same geographical territory. We need to engage in critical discussions regarding this as well. Content from other disciplines such as science, technology, art, history, and the like should be brought into the language classroom. So we cannot just think about teaching a piece from The Tryst with Destiny or something else, some literary text, or getting an episode from William Shakespeare, or teaching a poem just like that. When we talk about John Donne and the metaphysical poetry to our literature class students, we can think about various possibilities. And if you don't think about them, or if you are talking about Hamlet, you need to think about quite a lot of other possibilities as well to bring into the classroom, to engage in very much kind of a political discussion about correctness and about the construct of tragedy itself, comparing it with the traditions that we have in India, comparing it with the Greek tradition. So many things that we can do in a literature class. Similarly, if we plan it properly, we can actually integrate content from other disciplines themselves and then bring it to the language classrooms. And I'm not talking about language across the curriculum alone. It is just that the other subjects will be taught in English, and English teaching will be a part of the other subjects as well. But I'm talking about the counter process where you are bringing content from, say, astrophysics, or as I said, blue humanities, or whatsoever. You bring it into your classroom, and then you are working with it so that the students will also think about the content, not just the language content, but about the theme or the topic itself. And then that actually helps them to get into dialogue with each other, to collaborate, to cooperate, and bring in those social and emotional skills as well. Then we need to talk about teachers of English language must also talk about the humanities of crisis. It's not that we always talk about humanities in crisis, but then we have to talk about humanities of crisis, discuss how different disciplines are actually reacting to global and local issues, and how can I do my bit as a teacher of English? Some of you must be doing it, when you hear something very upsetting and then you walk into the classroom, you would like to share that with your students. That's one thing that good teachers always do. They can't just be pre-programmed kind of teachers. They come and they bring in a lot of other ideas with them. That could be some incident that happened in the bus on the way, or maybe when you were stuck in traffic, something happened, and then that catches your attention and you can't forget about it, but you want to just discuss that with students. I have run so many classes like that. Quite contextually situated topics we pick up and talk about. And I wouldn't I won't make that very strong statement, but I'll just try to make it a little euphemistic and say that we need to really bring in the crisis that happen in our in and around us at the global level as well as around us. We need to get engaged in such kind of discussions, and our discussions may not always just depend on the input that we give. It could be maybe something like an audio visual, or maybe print materials that we can bring along with us, maybe newspapers or some pamphlets or whatever. So it's around us. The materials are around us, the topics are around us. What as English language teachers we need to do is to just look at those and bring them to the classroom. be it from the same discipline or from a different discipline, or maybe something that we think that it's none of my business to look at it, it's not my discipline. Even if you feel that way, this is a time when we need to really rethink about the contributions that we as individuals can give to the society. Experiential learning is another important construct when we talk about sustainability dialogues in the language classroom. We need to give the learners ample opportunities to get introduced to and engage in problem solving skills. We can easily say that critical thinking and problem solving skills are very important skills, and it's documented in NEP 2020 that we need to teach them. Then how are we going to actually teach them? If you don't give them opportunities within the classroom to practice that, to exercise that, to think about various problems, how are we going to generate that skill or enable that skill in our students? Then more real life oriented projects and assignments must be given. So instead of asking them to write about something very typical, you talk about different topics, and rather than just thinking about it and limiting it into that theoretical paradigm where they may copy from something and produce something, make them do something very original. Give them hands-on practice in doing something quite original, and invite original ideas. And I believe in giving group projects, and with clear instructions about how the individual scoring will happen for the group project, so that great involvement is assured. So it's all about a teacher's idea about, or knowledge about assessment, and how fair we should be and how valid our assessment should be. That determines the kind of task that we give in our classroom as well. So if you don't have clarity about how you are going to assess students, then it is very difficult for you to create a task and give it. We need to have clear parameters, and students should be informed about it. So there should be some transparency in the kind of teaching and assessment that you want to do in the classroom. When it comes to the students' perspectives, it should match. You can actually ask suggestion from the students as well. You may think that this is a very big, huge kind of democratic space that I'm envisaging. No, this actually can happen. And that kind of a democracy must exist in our language classrooms. It's not that, you are an autocrat and you are quite hyperic in your ideas, that you implement it and then the students are subjected to submit that. I give multiple assignments, and then depending on the choice they can bring, they can step into that assessment pool and then find groups and do that. Even in the digital times, I used to do that, and it works well because the students have some interest in certain topics. Some people are interested in cryptocurrency, some people are interested in the gender imbalances in the society, so different. And when they have their own priorities about the topics, and if we give them some kind of chance to engage in that kind of a discussion with us, we are learning as well. So it becomes a two-way process rather than the teacher being the only input giver. Sometimes you get benefited from the students as well. You get introduced to different technical terms and technological stuff that are around as well. And then more collaboration with the community inside and the outside of the classroom. So this is about interiority and exteriority, and I'm not going to theorize it because I thought that this session should be a very practical based one. I'm not bringing in any big theories of posthumanism, but let me just talk to you about two things. One is about agency, and the other one is about this interiority and exteriority. So everyone has a world within. I have a world, you have a world individually, and collectively as well we have our own worlds, and these worlds are quite separate. So where is this interior and where is this exterior? It's quite like a dynamic space. So that is what I said. It's quite theoretical, and we need to really think about it in our classroom in a very different manner. So that is why I said we need to understand that when we have a class which we perceive as a collective unity and we think that we know them, and that as an interior kind of world, we are actually in the exterior space of their each individual interior space, because they have all got their own thinking space and we are outsiders of that realm, and so are they to us. So when we talk about classroom as a single entity, we are talking about classroom as a lot of islands. Somewhere we are tailored together, but then there are so many islands. So it's a concept that should just operate in our mind when we talk about topics and when we talk about learner interest and teacher interest and all. And the topics very importantly, and the materials. Then about agency, the oft quoted example is about two people who have the purpose to kill. Okay, but then one person has got a gun, a fully loaded gun with him, and B doesn't have a gun with him. So if who is more dangerous? Both have the intention to kill. Who is more dangerous? In all probability it should be A, because A is equipped with that material to exercise his will. B is not that equipped. He has the strong intention. So what I'm trying to tell you is that when we talk about interiority and exteriority, and we can't just say that this is my interior world and the rest of the things are quite separate from that. No, it's all inseparable. We need to have that agency in a very positive sense, to use whatever is around us, whatever is available to us, for the benefit of the students. So the agency there should not be something of an autocrat, but it should be something as an enabler to use whatever interior and exterior constructs that the students bring into the classroom, that we bring along with us as teachers into the classroom. So a little complex kind of an idea, but if you think about it in practical ways, it also can mean that you understand your learners in a better way. You do a needs analysis quite often, not just once in the beginning of the semester and you stop it there. No, you maintain certain records for yourself to talk about certain students who you think are problematic. So basically it's about establishing a personal connect with the students, monitoring them continuously, and locating whatever baggage that they bring into the classroom, and whatever positivities that they are bringing into the classroom, whatever transportable identities that they are bringing into the classroom. So we are focusing a lot on each individual as an individual having an interior world, but as a collective interior world also they are a part of that. So now we need to explore a few things. So these are the sustainable development goals that United Nations has envisaged for the 2030 year. Like by the time we reach the year 2030, we should be able to achieve all these goals, is what United Nations have talked about. Something that we can all take into our classrooms, not as sustainable development goals as envisaged by United Nations, but as thought about by the local situation, like our own little interior world called that classroom entity. You can talk about zero hunger, you can talk about quality education, you can talk about gender equality, life below water, that is aqua life, climate action. All these things can be talked about, brought into the classroom as topics of discussion. And I've done this. I've got a paper coming very soon about how I use climate action as an agenda in my classroom, and conducted a classroom experiment for over 6 months' time. And then, the results that it generated. So it asserts that when we pick up such a goal and focus our teaching not just on the linguistic skills, but also on developing the students' thinking skills around this goal, there are palpable changes. There are quite concrete changes that you can actually see, feel, and experience. Now, the possible activities for this, you can just ask them to find out about different cultures, food, festivals, rituals, etiquettes, make presentations based on that, have discussions on that, find out stereotypes in society, biases and discussions on breaking the bias, and all. One thing that was working really well was about, in my classroom, was about, superstitions. So I asked the students to find out different superstitions that are existing in our society, and they were able to talk about. They were able to collect quite a few superstitions from their surroundings, and it was a very interesting kind of project that we did. And they tried to. So many of them consume such superstitions, and then they were trying to rationalize it and all. And it is quite rewarding an experience for the teacher to see that there is some change in the way the students think, and they started questioning, they started getting engaged in that kind of questioning. So once you do that, you will experience that pleasure of teaching, because you will see something that is quite concrete happening, rather than just producing copied kind of assignments. It doesn't make any sense if we just allow them to write on something. There'll be at least 5 students who will be copying things. Locate an environmental issue and find a practical solution for that. So this is all coming into the design thinking paradigm, where you give them a project, small project, and they need to think about the issue. They need to explore the possibilities of resolving that issue at the local and global level. So it works brilliantly in classroom. The typical activities can be like, do a citizenship journalism. They love that. They love to be in the camera. We cannot just underestimate the students thinking that, oh, they won't be interested in that. Until and unless you try that out and then see it, you won't understand. And always be ready to give options to them, so that they get engaged into one of them quite willingly. Make documentaries, make short films. These days, I ask them to create memes, and I totally enjoy the student created memes. So infographics are a good resource for us to get them engaged in sustainability dialogues. For example, if you want to discuss something like empathy or mind power, and then how we have to, just get engaged in constructive kind of communication, something like that is your aim, you can actually bring in some infographics. One popular one that I used to use in my class was the infographic of the Tam Luang cave incident. If you remember, a few years ago, there was a soccer team who got stuck into this cave called Tam Luang cave. It's a cave complex in Thailand, if you remember, and all of them were saved after quite a few days, and the entire world came together to help Thailand for that. So it's a infographics, that simple infographics. I haven't got it here. I thought that it will be too much, and it's one of my favorite type of task. And it demonstrates a lot of possibilities for us to get them think about the power of mind and the kind of culture that helped the soccer team coach to survive, and then how the people in the world came around and offered help. What is that bigger humanity that we see compared to the minor kind of issues that are there around us, and how the minor things are blown up. So many possibilities. They can do a reading task, they can do a bit of writing, they can have a discussion, they can have a monologue. A lot of possibilities are there. There were enactment sessions as well in my classroom using that. Documentaries, it looks a little challenging, but enough enough time we give them in advance, they will be able to come up with a certain beautiful documentaries. Podcasts are easy. The students are interested in such things, and they do that quite well. Blogs, then memes, movies, and short films, we can use them as as resources. Memes to teach them language, teach them concepts. movies, short films, all possible. So to demonstrate it, I'll just give one example very soon. So to just quickly sum up the topics that you can get into the classroom: the climate action, poverty, hunger, food, sustainable cities, gender equality, quality education, culture shock, violence, environmental pollutions, all that can be taken up and got into the classroom. See, with this single picture that was released by UNICEF, I had a 1 hour class running with active interaction from the students. They had very strong points about establishing peace across borders. They have strong points about war, and don't think that all of them spoke about something against war. No, there were quite a few supporters of the war as well. And then how we got into negotiating these ideas and all, it was very interesting. So into the language classroom, we can actually bring in these topics and get into sustainability dialogues and role plays, interviews, debates, group discussions, infographics creation, short films, street plays, sometimes even mime. You might think, how is mime generating any language? Mime generates language because it's not during the mime that people talk, but before the mime they will be collaborating and discussing and all. And when they perform the mime, the students who are watching it are also thinking and getting engaged in what they are showing, because it's all about showing things and demonstrating things rather than speaking. There is no speech in mind. So a lot of a lot of intellectual challenge is there when you are demonstrating a mind, and that too within a very restricted time span for preparation and all. The students take it as a challenge and they do that. I'm talking about the offline context. I haven't done that in the online one yet. Poster presentations, all these are possible based on the topics that you choose, and any of these topics you can just use as a use as a topic for carrying out these modes of teaching. And I'll give you one example. Usually I ask questions and I don't expect any answers right now because it's a conference. I have used it in my classroom. When you are laughing at WW3 memes and start to wonder why the sun is coming out at 9 p.m., trust me, many of my learners did not understand the meme at all. They didn't understand that this was denoting the Russia-Ukraine crisis and the war memes that are being created, and people feeling that kind of false security at their home because they think that geographically I'm quite distant from all these, and in no time the nuclear explosion happens in their surroundings and they become victims of that. And it also extends the discussion to the World War II period and the invasions that different countries are doing, and invasions into human rights or violations of human rights and all those things. And along with that, I use this one, which actually narrated to them in volumes about the insignificance of all such crises, whether personal, social, or national. How insignificant kind of dots we are on the planet Earth, and then why we are engaging in such kind of fruitless kind of debates and problems. So this was an introduction to what I wanted to tell them about how these nuclear humanities operate within our life in reality. So I was trying to walk a step towards that, and then I used this particular article that came in a newspaper, and then did this reading activity with the students. So the memes were not just left alone like that. It acted as a schema brusher, or it was just helping them to stimulate their schema about what is WW3 and what is the sun coming out at 9 p.m. All those implications and implied things, inferential comprehension, everything was coming through this. And then the philosophy that you can see in the second meme was also was also used. And then in this backdrop, they were able to read and make sense of this particular article. And I have used it in a very different way, where I just blurred all the writing and then only those standing out kind of stuff, like the title, the caption kind of thing, and the picture and the letters in the white were only visible. And I asked them to just imagine the content or just predict the content. So they were coming up with beautiful interpretation. Some of them were quite right about it, some of them were not quite right, but then they had quite solid kind of substantiation for interpreting the title, when art goes nuclear. And they said that, well, that could be, this could be that. And then there is until and unless they read through the text, I cannot say that you are wrong or you are right. So they had the enthusiasm to read as well. So in a way, it the otherwise boring kind of a long passage or whatever, if we club it up with something that is quite happening in a contemporary situation, the students do actually get involved in that. They get motivated to do this. And then some suggestions. I'm just going to finish it off now. Make it a habit to write a personal note every day. This is for the teachers, as the teachers, a diary entry, a letter. Not just the teacher, the learners can also do that. And something that I do in my classroom is to ask them to write a letter to a friend. Usually they write it to their hostel mates, or maybe their sisters, or a very dear friend. Actually, they need to write it. And then, as they are not they were not able to send it during, as the postal services were not there during the pandemic times and all, they were taking screenshots of it and posting it. And you might ask, why don't I ask them to email? Emailing is a very different thing. Writing something and then giving some calligraphy kind of thing is quite a very engaging kind of thing. That's why I say write the letter instead of type the letter. Have deeper discussions in class beyond the syllabus that I already told you. These are all, recollecting everything that we have discussed so far. Projects and assignments that involve interaction and collaboration. So instead of simply giving an essay writing topic, you can ask them to actually interview someone, or have a discussion with a few people, just like how I exemplified that superstitions bit. You go and talk to the canteen people, or talk about someone in the staff, or maybe somewhere else on campus, and find out what are the superstitions that are existing within their culture. So it was largely Andhra culture, but then within Andhra culture at different places, there were quite a lot of differences. So they were able to capture it, and then they were able to thematize it, and then write it down as a very beautiful assignment, which definitely is going to look different from others, because that doesn't exist as one single assignment in the internet, and they can't just get it from internet just like that, because this is a very unique and contextually placed kind of assignment. Activities that enable more learner interaction and collaboration that lead to team building and tolerance must be engaged, and encourage them to volunteer for educational or other socially relevant kind of projects. Actually, we can do that within our classrooms. So I used to say that even to these high-headed techie kind of people, I used to say that do a good deed every day in the class. So they were trying to make opportunities for doing that good deed. And I say that, I'll give you 1 point for this particular assignment. And we had all these trees and all. Don't think that I was working with nursery kids. These students enjoy getting engaged in learning. So doing a good deed a day, something like that can actually bring in a lot of positivity in the students, and their outlook can be totally changed. And getting a pen pal or getting engaged in a global networking is something that I did, and this is wonderful actually. But then we have to take it with a pinch of salt, because we never know how the students are going to use or misuse it. But if you are sure about the students, you can share it with them. With this particular site, you can find students across the world, and then get get engaged in discussions on various cultural aspects and all. So it depends on how the teacher is able to monitor and making sure that they don't misuse. This is this is one interesting site for teachers, pen pal schools, where you can enroll as a teacher, and there are plenty of activities that are encouraging sustainable dialogues and cross-cultural communication and all. A wonderful resource actually. A teacher who is digitally quite sound and who can go hybrid can actually make use of this in a great deal actually. Now, let me just talk about and wind it up by sharing a few views about the continuing professional development practices that we need to undertake as ELT professionals. We need to actually tap the hybrid and online culture that this pandemic had, brought in. We can just say that it's such a disastrous kind of thing. Of course it is a disaster, but then along with that, whatever positivity we can take out from that, we need to, because we were never so comfortable going online or going hybrid. Now look at us. We are communicating, even though it's a one-way communication as of now. Emphasize interdisciplinarity. Use different tools sorting out infrastructural issues. We cannot just say that my institute doesn't provide me with these facilities. One day there was a student who was complaining about certain things, and then I said we will go out and we'll have a class. And we went, all the 60 students plus me, we went out and we occupied the amphitheater. Amphitheater in the sense it's an open space in that university. So we sat there and we had a class. The students, of course, their attention goes this way and that way. But then my class was also constructed in that way to just pick up things from the environment and talk about it. So basically a speaking oriented class or a discussion oriented class where the students were able to look at many things. And I said, spot one issue. And easily they spotted it out. One issue that they came up with was the pollution that is happening, because people were throwing things away. The students who were going from the cafeteria to their classrooms, they were throwing things away, even though the litter box was very much there. So they started talking about it, which resulted in a very interesting case study later. Collaborate with learners within your classroom, or somewhere else as well you can talk to. Collaborate with teachers from your own institute, from other institutes, from other states and other countries. There are so many professional development platforms over this different social media platforms as well. You can just join them, get engaged in conferences and all. And when you are into such platforms, make sure that you are learning something and unlearning certain things. Have a personal CPD plan. If you don't have one, it's going to be quite difficult. Be willing to go the extra mile. See teaching as a challenge for yourself. Read and write more about questions of sustainability. That is very, very important. Whenever you locate a problem, you need to think about it and jot it down in your diary, so that when there is a chance, you can share these thoughts with the students. They would totally enjoy that. Bringing that personal element to the classroom is something that the students, most of them, enjoy. Maintain a teacher diary, as I said, and compile a teacher portfolio if possible. I'm sure that most of us do not have time for that, but only when you do it, you will understand the trajectory of your progress, your interior journey as well as your exterior journey. As a better teacher, you can trace when you are actually creating a portfolio, and this will help you to produce documents. And if you are going for an interview or something, it will give you clarity about the kind of tasks that you have undertaken, the kind of projects that you have given to the students, and the kind of impact that you have created. So being a very effective teacher, if that is your agenda, and excelling as a teacher, as a professional is your agenda, you need to at least consider all these things and try doing it. And only when you start doing it and documenting what you do in the classroom, you will be able to focus on that trajectory and identify the problems. Getting the student feedback is also very important. I didn't put it here, but I'm emphasizing that You need to, the institute might be taking a feedback, that doesn't really matter. You need to assure anonymity to the students and get the feedback on your teaching. That is very, very important if you want to develop yourself as a professional. And this feedback is not only about your teaching, but about the materials that you used in your classroom as well. So all documentation must happen, all significant episodes must be documented, and this documentation can actually culminate as a very good solid research paper that you can publish in any journals, because classroom research is a great kind of knowledge pool, and people are interested in publishing such research. So I'm sure that the last speaker is going to talk about it, so I'm not going to elaborate on that. So there is a group for us, the Pen Pal Global Educators Facebook group. Wonderful. If you go there, you can find a lot of like-minded individuals engaging in great discussions and ensuring cross-cultural transactions and all. You can learn from each other, share your experiences there, get materials. Sometimes as it is all online mode, you can even have some kind of online transactions with their students and your students. So it's a brilliant platform for all that. And I thank you very much for all your patient listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. It was a wonderful lecture. Thank you for introducing us to. Thank you for introducing us to find ways to mainstream sustainability dialogues. You made us aware of the concepts of interiority and exteriority principles, which we can use in our ESL classes. And we realized that without engaging in social and emotional discourses, no learner can be molded to fit into the global citizenship concept. You actively stressed on incorporating content from other disciplines to make ESL classes relatable, and how we are to lose all our vices to be more approachable and to be a better teacher, which we ultimately strive for. Thank you, ma'am, for that wonderful session. The floor is now open to the audience, both online and offline, for questions. I have two questions which the audience have given to me. Shall I read them out, ma'am?
Yes, please.
The first question is, does reflective teaching help in developing sustainability dialogues in ELT classroom?
Absolutely. You asked about reflective teaching, right? Yeah, I think I heard it right. Yeah, if it is about reflective teaching, yes. But then one thing is there, you need to actually get engaged in that kind of reflection. Everybody has to get engaged in that kind of reflection. And such practices can actually enable us to locate where we stand as a teacher, and where we place ourselves with the learners as well, and getting feedback from the students, and assessing yourself and getting the feedback from the students and comparing them both will be an absolutely great resource. And one more thing is about you can you can follow that reflective practice even without engaging into any sustainability questions. You can simply go about LSRW skills and then be reflexive. But then what I am focusing on is to bring in these things from the exterior part of the ecosystem, engage with that, and then be reflexive on that. So you will clearly understand where this all these interactions can happen, and where your reflection itself actually is quite helpful in narrowing down the topic, or maybe restricting certain topics to a certain group of students. All that is possible, but along with that, you need to engage in critical discussions with the sustainable issues. The second thing is to actually monitor the student feedback. The third thing is to go for a self-evaluation. So three things if you do as part of your reflective practice, it is going to be an excellent thank you.
Yes, I understand, ma'am. Thank you very much. There is one more question which is like more practical. Our classrooms are a mixed bag of first generation learners. We have students with varying competence. And what do you suggest for a teacher who is in a catch-22 situation? Between syllabus completion and bringing his various possibilities of mastering LSRW, I really buy your observation that it will make teaching learning an interesting endeavor. But how are we supposed to go about grading them, especially when we follow a centralized pattern of testing that's based on a prescribed text?
I was not able to clearly hear you, but did you ask a question about having one, central type of examination or assessment practice, and then we have to stick to that assessment paradigm, and then
Yes,
how
ma'am.
can we incorporate all that I have discussed? Is that something
Yes,
that
ma'am.
you said? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's the question.
Yeah, I would. I expected this question because this is quite an expected question from any kind of teacher fraternity that we go to, because we think about, even if we are discussing creative thinking, we think about how to evaluate that and how to break that syllabus construct, restrictions and all. There is no single answer to that question about this, the assessment being centralized. It's very difficult. When you have certain things to evaluate, you are supposed to teach towards that, so exam oriented teaching has to happen in that context. But I believe that every single teacher will have this freedom to decide on the continuous evaluation criteria. So that is something that every department has to take as a decision, to come up with something that incorporates all these possibilities of internal evaluations being a little more flexible to cater to the sustainability questions in place. So that is what I would advise. You cannot change the end semester or end year end kind of examination and the pattern of questions that come for that, but then you can always think about the internal assessments being reshaped. So that is the only solution that we can think about. But then I was talking not just about the assessment practice, I was talking about the teaching methodology as well. So you need to focus more on the teaching methodology rather than just looking at that assessment as the only criteria for awarding grades and marks. So we are always talking about things that we need to do beyond this grading. So we should not just restrict it and bring it as a practically situated thing that my duty is to do that exam oriented teaching because this is what the institute or the educational system demands. We need to look at what are the possibilities at an individual level, at the department level as well, and incorporate whatever changes to assessment can be done within the internal evaluation topics and criteria and all. And my talk was largely about the kind of teaching method or the pedagogy, as we say. So yeah, that's my response to that.
Thank you, ma'am. There are two more questions actually. One is from a student. He will ask the question after I've completed this. What is the impact of digital humanities in an ELT classroom in reference to sustainability dialogues?
I couldn't hear it. What is the impact of
Digital humanities
on
ELT classroom in reference to sustainability dialogues?
it is, I think I have already explained that, because it's not just a field specific talk that I have done. So you can yourself explore the possibilities of bringing in aspects of digital humanities into our classrooms. Why not? I told about blue humanities being experimented in ELT classrooms. Why not digital humanities? It's not Greek and Latin for us, right? So it's just about how the teacher can, everything is possible in an English classroom. I told you about nuclear humanities being explored in an English language classroom, then why not digital humanities? It's quite there as integral part of everything. So yeah, it is possible, and it depends on the teachers. If I start telling you the ways in which you can, it's going to prolong. So I'm just leaving it to your imagination. It is very much possible because it's just one another discipline, right? So you can easily incorporate that.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving on to the question from the student.
Good morning, ma'am. That was a wonderful lecture. It was very interesting to know that we have to bring sustainability to education. I've been looking forward from my teachers for this aspect for a long time. Students are generally mostly interested when activities are used as a method of teaching, as you mentioned, ma'am, is very true. We learn through innovative projects and tools like that, and in this institution, we have a scope for that, as it's not that. But my question is, students are constantly tested on their knowledge in various methods. We have constant examinations, but we do not have a set pattern for teachers to test or evaluate how much efforts they have put into teaching. From this side, I do not know how much they constantly try to enable us with a lot of knowledge other than the language itself. So do you think there must be a system or a basic model to check the professionality and quality of teachers like constantly for every class or maybe for every semester? And if something like that already exists, where is it and how is it being done?
Oh dear, I couldn't hear at all. Can you just sum it up and tell me in one? I mean, I know that you can't repeat the entire stuff, but I really couldn't hear you at all. I was trying to make sense, but then it didn't. Yeah, just crisply. Do you think what? What do I
If I
think?
just crisp it up, it will be so offensive, ma'am. That's why I had to explain it completely. The thing is, just like students have examinations and patterns to constantly account for the knowledge that they are being possessing, is there an accountability system and pattern for teachers on how they put their efforts in teaching to the students?
So you're telling me that the students would like to get that exam oriented knowledge or that something like that. I was like, it's not audible to me. That's the problem.
Okay, ma'am, 2 minutes, I'll type it out. I'll type it out.
I heard something about accountability. So whose accountability is what I'm thinking? Is it the teacher's accountability or the student's accountability?
Yes, ma'am. She was indeed asking the question about teachers' accountability. She's asking whether there are patterns where the students can get an idea about how accountable the teacher is.
How good the teacher is. Oh my God, you have no idea about how great our students are. They are the sharp critics of us. You know, you just do a Quora search, you will see all that, all that description, you know. So don't underestimate the students. They really know how to evaluate us. But when I told you about you giving a topic for this, I mean, not topic, you giving an opportunity for the students to give a feedback for you, there you can actually highlight the points on which you want yourself to be evaluated by the students. But if you leave it to their imagination, not always it will be a very concrete kind of feedback that they give, but they do have expectations on the students, I mean on the teachers. And one thing I noticed in my experience is that you can be a very friendly teacher, very amiable and very accessible, and we think that such teachers are quite popular and celebrities and all. Not really. The students want a perfect combination of knowledge, the ability to transact that knowledge with the students, and being accessible and being friendly without quite critical about the mistakes that they make, and very tolerant about the student behavior. How students are tested for their knowledge is their accountability pattern or model to constantly test the efforts of the teachers put into teaching. Don't you think all institutions do that? Because there are external checks happening. I'm not sure about any particular institution, but wherever I work, there was a constant feedback system given in operation. The students were able to give the feedback, and sometimes private universities and all, they hire people who are very qualified to come and observe the classes and give the feedback as well. So this happens, and in the Western world and all, there are peer observers. The teachers go and observe the other teachers' classrooms as well. So quality check is always there. And then, of course, if you browse itself, you can find various parameters with which you can evaluate something called teacher efficacy itself. So yes, there is an accountability pattern if you are looking at a particular structure to evaluate the teachers, just like how we create criteria of evaluation for the students. Yes, it exists and it's quite in operation everywhere. And there will be a catch one day if you are getting a very negative kind of feedback from the students. So teachers have to be on their toes as well and bring in newness and bring in very different things. Be knowledgeable and be accessible and be kind. Yes, thank you.
Brilliantly answered, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you for giving me in type, in writing. Thank you very much.
It was a wonderful lecture, ma'am. We thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. May I leave now?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
A reminder to the audience, before we move on to the next session, there will be a 5-minute break. And the QR code will be displayed on screen, which you can scan and which will redirect you to the feedback link. Kindly post your feedback. Ma'am said only 5 minutes. Sir, hello, sir. Ilambati, sir. Sir, can you hear me? Sir, there is a very short 5-minute break between these two sessions. So if you can please bear with us, we'll be back in 5 minutes. Sir, am I audible? You aren't audible to us, sir.
Good morning. Is there a break? I have a doubt. If there is anyone on the other side, could you please respond?
Bharati, it's a break of 5 minutes. Bharati, this is Shoma. Break of 5 minutes. Start.
Okay, clear.
அதான் நான் காலையில சொன்னேன். என்ன மேம் பண்றது, நாங்கெல்லாம் உட்கார்ந்தா இருக்கோம். Sir, are we audible?
You are. Now,
Okay.
yes. I saw your message on the chat box. It's okay. Cool.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank
Take
you.
a break. When you come back, just let me know. Then we
Yes,
are
sir.
on.
Sure,
Thank
sir.
you.
Sure, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, shall we begin the session?
Yeah, sure, I'm ready.
Okay, sir, 1 second.
Yeah, sure.
Sir, we've made you the co-host of the session so that it will be easy for you to share your screen.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Please proceed.
The next guest we have amongst us today is an illustrious alumnus of our prestigious institution, Dr. S. Ilampati. He is a passionate researcher and teacher whose unwavering interest is in ELT. His interest in ELT has made us approach him. His belief that education is meaningful and effective only when lessons are made lively and thought-provoking gives us an insight into the significance of ELT universally. Sir has completed CELTA from Polyglot Institution, Muscat, affiliated to Cambridge University, and he did his PhD in Partakers University, Trichy. He has carried out many action research projects on ELT and public speaking as the research coordinator of the ELC, University of Technology and Applied Sciences, IBRA. Some of his accolades include an advanced bronze leadership in Toastmasters International, a silver medallion in public speaking in an international debate contest 2019-20, and many more. I now request Dr. Ilampati sir to deliver the lecture featuring the topic ELT and Neo-Colonialism, Reflections and Ramifications. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Master of Ceremony. And it is always good to be back at the Bishop Heber College. Okay, we used to call it the Beauty Bishop. I don't know what you guys call it now. Because I remember as a student, every single corner of the college. Okay, I was there for 6 or 7 years. And it is indeed, for me, a joyous occasion to be back with you all. And I would like to first of all thank Dr. Shobana for having given me this opportunity. And I also would like to thank all my teachers back in the college. You know, I am what I am today, or whatever I am today is primarily because of them. I am indebted to them in this connection forever. You know, I am also a Toastmaster, as the Master of Ceremony has pointed out. And therefore, I am going to actually make my presentation very light, personal, and I will try to humanize this knowledge as much as possible. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to ask you whether you can see it. Okay, just let me know whether you can see it clearly.
Yes, sir, we can.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So yesterday, you listened to Dr. Ali Al-Isa from Sultan Qaboos University, Muscat, and he was talking about how neo-colonialism and neoliberalism, okay, spoil English language teaching in Oman. Okay, they poke their nose at every aspect of ELT in Oman. That is exactly what he was talking about yesterday. I will be also referring to it, but I will also differ with him at certain areas, and I will highlight those areas to you today. Okay, let's get started. You know, I watched this movie probably 3 weeks ago. I am sure some of you watched this movie as well. Did you? Did you watch this movie? Have you heard of this movie?
Sir, we were muted. I'm sorry about the delay. Yes, some have heard of it, some have not heard of it, some have watched it.
Okay, good. Anyhow, actually, this movie was quite interesting for me and for different reasons. First of all, this is a movie about Indian police system. Okay, and this actually movie starts with this particular scene where they say that Indian police system was primarily started by the British, and it continues to this day, okay, with the same format. Do you have any idea when Indian police service, okay, was legalized and legitimized through law in India? When it came into being, do you have any idea? Let me actually, this is precisely what the movie actually starts with. And then if you see, most of us know how Indian policemen behave. You have seen them. First, they will manhandle you if there is a situation, and then they will handle the situation. They are rude. They can hit anybody, and you know that. Okay. And 1861. The moment I say 1861, many of you would have actually thought about 1857. If you had thought about that, kudos to you. You are on the right track. You know, 1857, what the British called Sipai Mutiny happened. Immediately after that, they wanted to actually control the Indian public, so they needed police force. Okay, so that is precisely why you can see Indian Police Act 1861. And it gave them unlimited powers to suppress any act of revolt and rebellion. And they were trained to be rude. They were trained to be violent. And that is why you say this continues even today. What we call this phenomenon colonial hangover. Okay, this is actually normal to every Indian. We all know the high-handedness of police. In the recent past, even the public have become like that. We all know that. Okay, now why I am talking about this? As I told you, I was reminded, I am in Oman. You know, this is Oman police. In complete contrast to the Indian police system, Omani police men are very gentle, very kind, and quite cooperative. They wouldn't touch you. Forget about hitting. They wouldn't touch you unnecessarily. Even in the extreme situations, you wouldn't see them losing their temper. Okay? They shine by contrast if you compare them with the Indian policemen. I was always wonderstruck. How would this be possible? Is it just because of the colonial past that the Indian policemen behave like that? This question actually always, okay, disturbed me quite a bit. But you will be really surprised. This is precisely where, okay, the connection between the Indian police service and the Omani police service become much more interesting. Do you know the Omani police force was modeled upon the UK police force? And do you also know the fact that the UK police force is one of the friendliest in the world? They are very nice, very kind, okay, and quite cooperative. And then if you see that, the same Britishers who started the police force in India started it for very different reasons. But in their own country, they were never like that. And in the hypocrisy and the double standards become quite obvious to anybody, okay, who look at it quite closely. I was just reminded of a speech delivered by the silver-tongued Srinivasa Sastry when he was actually given an award by the British before India became independent. Okay, and this is recorded as a form of an essay in the galaxy of essays, if I am not wrong. It's called The Joy of Freedom. So Srinivasa Sastry went to the UK and spoke to the British. He said, you guys respect freedom a lot. Everyone in your country is free. And you value freedom more than anything else. But people with such high values, I am amazed, he said. I am wonderstruck why you do not give freedom to India. Why are you so hesitant in making India independent? What is the reason? He said. And then finally he said, anybody who doesn't allow freedom to others, in fact, the allow is itself a wrong word. You can't allow freedom. You do not have the capacity, but they had because of the colonial, okay, power that they enjoy. If you do not respect the freedom and independence of any other individual, you do not know the joy of freedom. And this is precisely how he ended his beautiful speech. Of course, he subtly pointed at the hypocrisy and the double standards of the British system. And the same hypocrisy and the double standards were visible for me when I saw the Omani police force and the Indian police force. I could see the hands of colonialism everywhere in the Indian police system. Okay, so this analogy, keep this in mind. And then now let us take this analogy to ELT and see how it works. Okay, so yesterday Dr. Ali Alisa was talking about how the neoliberal forces, especially, it is called NABA. Anybody, do you know what NABA is? It is an important word in ELT. The politics of ELT, it is absolutely necessary that we know this word NABA. It's called North America, Britain, and Australia. These are the 4 countries, like it's a conglomeration of, let's say, the first language countries. Okay, these are, most of them are the native speakers of English, right? So they have a very strong hold over many other countries. That is precisely what he was talking about, introducing policies which are very useful for them. Okay, sometimes at the expense of the people who get it from them. Now let us look at it. This is the article this is the article that he very recently published, using English language teaching professionalism to bash cultural imperialism. You can see in the Sultanate of Oman, and he was talking about it. And then he was referring to the University of Leeds contract with the Ministry of Education. They got $25 million. Oh my goodness, a whooping amount. So they get that much amount. So what do? So they interfere in the policy. Okay, and then they introduce their textbooks. And he says, because of these policies, the teachers are not able to exercise their autonomy and critical thinking. So this hampers from within professionalism. That is precisely the word that he uses. From within professionalism of the ELT teachers in Oman. Okay, I am a teacher of Oman. Here teacher in Oman, that here. I have been teaching here almost now for 10 years. And the textbooks, believe me, are not at all suitable for the students. And we have tried a lot. We have tried a lot to change the textbook, but in vain. So what we did, actually, we initiated a research work where we went and interviewed many prominent Omanis. We covered many interesting things that happened in Oman, about the history, about the culture of Oman, and so on and so forth. And we tried to incorporate those items in the textbook. Okay, that was our research project. It was a major research project, thought to be funded by the Research Council of Oman. We submitted this research work. It was not approved of. Again, we submitted, and we are waiting for the results. Why we are doing that? As I told you, the textbooks are not suitable for the students at all. It comes from the above. Okay, and still we are actually powerless. Though all the teachers have pointed out the problems, nothing seems to change. So this is precisely what we are talking about. Why does this happen? This happens because a particular group, okay, of countries, NABA, they try to, okay, control the ELT job market, and it's very useful for them. That is precisely he was talking about yesterday, right? Now let us have a look at it. You will be surprised. Even in the UK, if you look at the ELT market, look here, this will give you a clear-cut idea. It amounts to 2.4 billion pounds, that is 3.48 billion US dollars. Can you imagine the scale of the industry? And it is much, much bigger than Coca-Cola, Vodafone in the UK. Okay, and it is even sometimes, like bigger than the government's own departments for business and innovation skills. So many people get employment because of that. So can you see that? This is precisely what Dr. Ali Alisa was talking about. But the point actually that he misread, and I wouldn't say it is his mistake because he's not from India, is that unlike you, he said, we are still, okay, a de facto colony of the British. because he thought, like with the people like Mahatma Gandhi, we somehow managed to liberate ourselves. And there is no element of neo-colonialism in our syllabus. Okay, we are completely free. He actually he thought like that. Probably he thought like, because there are no native speakers in India. If you look at all the English departments, primarily there are Indians. So probably he came to the conclusion like that. However, I believe that there is a great deal of neo-colonialism in our syllabus. And that is precisely what I am going to talk about. Yesterday's lecture by Dr. Ali Alisa was all about neo-colonialism in the ELT profession in Oman. So today I am going to talk about neo-colonialism, elements of neo-colonialism in India. Okay, because this is with regard to our own situation. And partly my PhD was about that. So I think I am in a better position to deal with it than Dr. Ali Al-Isa. Okay, so first, I think there are many students. Yesterday, I changed this. I did not want to include these details, but the moment I saw the members in the audience, I decided that I have to make it a bit more pictorial, a bit more illustrative, because there are many students. Okay, so what is neo-colonialism and how is it different from colonialism? Just I would like to make these things clear so that everybody can follow. You know very well that we were ruled by the British. And that aspect, that period when we were ruled by the British or by the Portuguese and many others, we would call them the colonial period, right? So here, what is neo-colonialism? There are new forms, avatars of colonialism. Okay, this can be economical, like as in the case of ELT profession in Oman. Okay, their contract with the University of Leeds, right? And it can be political, it can be social, it can be cultural, okay? Or it can be just, like a hegemonic relationship within two countries. Okay, now how they treat us. Let us look at this example. I'm sure you know what this is. Anyone? Any idea? You don't have to respond to me all the time, because I am asking this question so that you can think and process the answer in your mind. Okay, that is the purpose of my asking the question. So don't think that you have to answer me. This is Mangalyaan. Okay, so when India successfully launched Mangalyaan, all of us were very happy. I'm a very proud Indian, and I was really very, very happy about the achievement. India became the fourth country, though actually not everything was successful at that time. Yeah, it was almost successful, and I was really very happy. But something else also happened. Okay, in the British Parliament, they were discussing that, look, we are giving a lot of money to India in the form of aid. And what they are doing, they are using that money to launch satellites and so on and so forth, and therefore we shouldn't give. Right? This is what they were talking. This was happening at the British Parliament. I will connect to this later. Okay. And then look, this is precisely how the New York Times responded to our launching Mangalyaan. Okay, I'm sure you have seen that. So this is what happened. But sometimes situations change very fast. So the very next year, then what happened? India actually launched 104 satellites at the same time. Okay, it was actually it happened for the first time. It was a record event. And this is how Times of India responded to that particular ad by the New York Times. Okay, so these are very interesting pieces of information. That from this we can understand quite a bit. And then when India wanted to set solar panels, okay, this is how a French newspaper, okay, this is precisely what they did. This is how they represented India's attempt. See this. Do you see how they undermine, how they look down upon as So do not think that colonialism as a whole ended. Yes, of course, the old form of colonialism has ended, but there are new forms of colonialism. And we call this aspect, okay? This is only a small aspect. There are, as I told you, there can be an economic aspect, social, cultural, academic, linguistic, and so on and so forth. There are many forms of colonialism. And this is indirect, not as direct as it was in the past. That is why we call it neo-colonialism. I am sure this should be clear to the students, whosoever is there. Okay, now let's continue with that. So neo-colonialism in India. Okay, so this is one book, okay, that was written by Professor N. Krishnaswamy. Linguistic Colonialism and the Expanding English Empire, the Politics of Indians English. Okay. Now, here he raises some very important questions. As I told you, in Oman, I am working in Oman, right? I am a teacher of English. You know, here now there aren't many in my college. There were many native speakers, okay, who are working with me here. So native speakers. I'm sure you know the term native speaker. But in this book, actually, Professor Krishnaswamy problematizes the notion native speaker. First of all, let me tell you the problem, then you will be able to understand. Okay, you know, when I came to Oman, I had a PhD. I completed my PhD in 2010. I also had a post-MA diploma in linguistics from the University of Delhi. Okay, that is how I was recruited by the Ministry of Higher Education in Oman. That happened in 2012. But when I came here, I was shocked to see many with just 10th and 12th standard. Okay, I was really shocked. They were recruited because they were native speakers. Okay, that is the advantage they had over us, and their salary was more. Believe me, even today, if you look at CELTA, you will see that anyone who passed 10th standard will be able to do CELTA. After CELTA, they will be able to join and work anywhere, because you know they have this tag of native speaker. So you understand the problem and the economic aspect of it. They were paid more than other teachers, especially because we are considered, non-native speakers of English. So we were paid less. So the question is quite obvious to most of you, that if I was interviewed and selected for the post, that means the ministry considered me eligible for the post. And that guy with 10th or 12th standard, just because he was a native speaker, he was employed, but he got more salary than a PhD. Why? Because he was considered a native speaker. So now let me actually ask you some of the questions that Dr. Krishnaswamy, Professor N. Krishnaswamy raised in his book. Okay, who exactly is a native speaker? Okay, for example, if my father, let's assume, okay, is from Tamil Nadu and my mother is from Karnataka, what exactly is my first language? Okay, if I was born, for example, let's assume that I was born in England. I was there for 2 or 3 years, and then I moved to India. By doing so, completely in the process, I forgot English. I can speak English like anyone else in India, but will I be still considered a native speaker? What is exactly the period of language acquisition? 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? Who is a native speaker? You know, my first daughter was born in Rajasthan. He used to speak Marwari so very well. Okay, I didn't understand Marwari at all, but my daughter would speak excellent Marwari. But when I came down to India, she forgot everything altogether. So who is a native speaker? Okay, let's assume the native speaker. You know, he is called a native speaker because his ability to speak. We all know that we learn our mother tongue quite fast. Okay, is he in ELT? It is not just speaking, it is reading, writing, listening, and speaking. A native speaker, is he also a native writer? Are there differences in terms of different skills? Yes or no? If you actually assign a particular age for a particular skill, your speaking age will be very different from your writing age, then reading age. Listening and speaking may come quite naturally to you. So who exactly is a native speaker? You know, they brilliantly solved the situation here in Oman and many other countries. If you have a passport of these countries, you know, North Africa, North America, Australia, or England, okay, from Canada as well. So then you will be considered a native speaker and you are eligible for different perks. So how is it possible? Then he asked questions, like then you have this Indian English, Pakistani English, Bangladeshi English, African English, so on and so forth, right? So then Professor N. Krishnaswamy raises another very important question. Okay, this is very important for you to understand. What is Indian English exactly then? Okay, what is Indian English? Is there any standard Indian English? If you ask this question, the answer is of course no. How many people can speak English in India? Okay. And there are people who can speak very good English. There are people who can only speak broken English. What exactly is Indian English? And people from Jammu and Kashmir speak very differently. Okay, from people in Chennai. And because I taught in Rajasthan, I studied in Delhi, I know North India in and out almost because I traveled the length and breadth of our country. It's just very different. What exactly is Indian English? So the question here is, then he asked, and then he conducted another experiment before I go. Then what he did, he gave actually 6 different pieces of writing to people. And he asked them to judge which is Indian English, which is native English, written English. Okay. And people could not identify at all. So if you actually consider written English, it is very difficult sometimes, like because there are very good writers. It is very, very different to tell apart what is native and what is not native. It is, of course, not possible. Then, of course, then why do we need this Indian English? What is the politics behind this? Let's put it this way. Look at the ELT market. Now they hold a sway over the ELT market. The Middle East, okay, you still have some countries, for example, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, China, Japan, Korea. Everywhere native speakers are recruited. So there is a distinction, okay, that is to be made between native and non-native English. Then is it a ploy to do that? That is the question. Though the native speaker is dead kind of theories have been around for a long time, but somehow they are able to get their way through. And still there is a lot of distinction. This is precisely what this book has. It's a fantastic book. Okay, and then say we are very happy to say that there is something called Indian English. No, it is a ploy. Okay, it is a ploy. That's what he says. That's what he has rather. Okay, now let's see here. Even in India, now this is about other, right? So if that is the case, then what would you expect? Do you know the ELT, the worth of ELT industry? Look here, the worth of ELT industry is going to be $49.93 billion by 2027. Can you believe it? Just look at it. Okay, you and I work in such a very, very powerful industry. Then what would you think our departments should do? This is my important question. You are in such a very powerful industry. Do you equip the students for this? The answer is unfortunately no. Okay, though here in the Middle East there are many English teachers from India, that is because of cultural issues. Because the Middle East is quite conservative, so the Indians, the guys from South Asian, primarily from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, they gel well with the locals here. And there are native speakers, they come and go. Otherwise, we absolutely failed to read the situation, to make use of this. Our industry is almost $50 billion worth, but we don't prepare our students. Our students are blissfully unaware of what is happening outside India. Okay, let me actually come to the next issue. This is about the market outside India. Now let's actually go to ELT market report. Now, who did this? This actually was given to the British government. ELT market report in India, right? Okay, now what they say, now if you look at the English proficiency report, conducted by EF, you can see here, we are a country who is only moderately proficient, okay? And they say that the market is huge in India. Though there are many actually private tuition centers and quite a few colleges, still there is a great deal of demand for good English language teaching. So both at home and outside, we have a huge, massive ELT market. How did our departments respond? Nothing. They have just one paper on ELT. Why? Then you ask the question. No, because like everywhere you look around, unemployment is a very big issue in India. Okay, and those students, then we know that who study computer science or IT get a lot of jobs. Okay, what about students who study English? We think that what do we study then exactly? Look at the syllabus, our own syllabus. Then you get the answer. You look at the syllabus and you get the answer. So this is it. We have been teaching English for quite a bit of time, and then what is our rating? We are just moderately proficient. And believe me, Singapore, Philippines, Malaysia, South Korea, Hong Kong, China, and the another one is also part of China. They are all ahead of us. Okay, they have higher scores. That's why they don't employ from India. So what did we do? We missed the bus. Why? This is actually our proficiency level, and what are we teaching? And then if you look at what we are teaching, then there is the answer. We are still teaching Shakespeare, Milton, Chaucer, and so on and so forth. I am not against Shakespeare, Milton, or Chaucer. I am just wonderstruck that students, most of them who can't actually speak English fluently, have to read Chaucer, Shakespeare, Milton in their first year, MA first year. This is just mind-boggling. Okay, and I don't really know what to say. This is exactly what I felt when I actually did my PhD. Then I'll come to it later, okay, with proof. Right, okay. So why did this happen? First, let us understand the colonial aspect. Then I will come to the neo-colonial aspects also. Okay, now you see here, I want you to go through this. I'll give you 2 minutes. Please go through this. Because if you do not know what it is famously called the Macaulay's Minute. This formed the very basis of modern Indian education. Please go through this once. Okay, so I'm sure you have gone through this. See, Macaulay says that Indian languages are unfit, to be used for education. So therefore, there is only one option, he says. What is the only option? Not the mother tongue, but some other foreign tongue. So what is the foreign tongue that is most suitable for higher education in India, for education in India? Yes, obviously, English. Okay, so English. Therefore, you teach English to them. But my question now, before we go ahead, what he said, he downplayed the importance of our literatures, our philosophies, value systems, knowledge systems. Okay. He said a single shelf of European library is far superior to the literatures of Asia and Arabia put together. Okay. This is precisely what he said. And he said that astronomy that is practiced in India would move a school-going child to laughter in England. These words. Okay, now let's see. Is that true? Because many of us do not know our own history. So is that true? I am going to give you some of the contemporary evidences to say that it was not true at all. Okay, now this is Columbia University in the recent past. I don't know how many of you know about this. Do you know this? This is in 600 BCE. India was the first country to use plastic surgery. Okay, by sage Shushruta. Okay, and the textbook is called Shushruta Samhita. The history of medicine. Who says it? Probably in India, if you say that, then you will be called a retard. Okay, a conservative, a traditionalist, and whatnot. This is Columbia University, because a country which is heavily colonized, that needs only evidence from outside. Therefore, I give you evidence only from the standard universities of high repute. Okay, now let's actually, I will give you the second example. This book, The Crest of the Peacock, published by the Princeton University Press. Okay, his non-European roots of mathematics. What exactly the book? Am I audible? Can I continue?
బాగున్నాను. జూమ్ మీటింగ్ ఏంటండి మళ్ళీ మాట్లాడు.
Hello, excuse me. Can I continue? Is there any problem?
Sir, you are audible. You may continue.
Thank you. Okay. Because I heard someone speaking, okay, in between. So I thought there was a problem. Thank you. So this is precisely what, okay, this is published by the Princeton University Press. Okay, there is, I don't know how many of you know about this Kerala School of Mathematics. So they predated Newton's discovery by 250 years. So what exactly do they say? They say the Kerala School of Mathematics had the idea of pi and so on. So at that time, the Jesuit priests who were around, they actually collected, they were also very good at mathematics. They gathered information from the Kerala School of Mathematics and took home, which then was used by Newton. Okay, this is not us telling us, this is by Princeton University Press. Okay, now let's go here. This is Britannica. Many people say it's Arabs who invented zero, especially the credit goes to Al-Khwarizmi. No, it is not so. Okay, this actually comes primarily from India, the earliest evidence. Okay, it is still, even today it is called Hindu-Arabic system because essentially it came from India, right? Now, I'm going to give you another very important source. I'm trying to negate what he said, okay? So I'm just giving you this example. Science in the Medieval World, it's actually a book that was actually written by Syed Al-Andalusi, published by University of Texas Press, Austin. Now, if you read here, what he says, he praises Indians. I don't know whether you can read this. He praises, okay. I am not able to, I think you can. He says that Indians actually excelled in science. They were ahead of everyone else. This is in the 11th century. Believe me, this is in the 11th century, okay. And whether you know it or not, now this actually probably another OECD countries actually asked the great economist Angus Madison to come up with a millennial perspective of world economy from 1 AD to the present century. Now, this is precisely what he said. If you look at the map, it is quite clear. Look at India. This is India. Can you see here? We contributed almost 33% of the world's GDP. And that too for a period of 1,200, 300 years before the invasions began. So we were a very, very rich country. Okay, almost very good at science. Okay, literature, I don't have to tell you. You read Tolkapiam, you read, for example, grammar, Panini's Ashtadhyay. I studied linguistics in the University of Delhi. I had a visiting professor called Ananta Narayanan who was teaching at the University of Chicago. Okay, so this is precisely what even Chomsky himself had to say. Had I studied Panini, I wouldn't have had to waste 26 years, okay, in getting at minimalism. You know, Chomsky is such a very prominent linguist. And look at Natya Shastra, look at Artha Shastra. We have so much text. So many of them, right? So much in terms of literary output. So believe me that India was rich and it was leading. At that time, if you look at Europe, this is Europe. Can you see here? You will be wonderstruck. Look at here, Western Europe, up to 1700. See where they? They were nowhere. They were absolutely nowhere. It is only after they started colonizing India, their GDP went up. And you can see here, India's GDP started coming drastically after invasion and then came to just from 33% to 4% in 1947 when India got freedom from the Britain. Can you see how powerful India was? Then here comes Macaulay and says, he says that, okay, Indian languages are not good for education at all. There is nothing that is praiseworthy in this country so that we need our language, our literature. He says English literature is required to, okay, to civilize the barbaric Indian race. This is precisely what he said. Do you know how much money was stolen from India? Okay, this is actually, you can see here, this research was done by the famous economist who is working at the Jawaharlal Nehru University, Utsa Patnaik, and this was published by Columbia University Press. This 45 trillion US dollars. Can you just believe it? I told you when India launched Mangalyaan and the British Parliament was discussing this. Some of them said, okay, we give them money and that's why they are sending it. Come on, you took $45 trillion from us. Your industrial revolution was funded by India. You impoverished this country. And you give some money to NGOs, not even to the Indian government. And then you claim that because of our money, they are sending, launching rockets like Mangalyaan. Is there, I don't know, this kind of hypocrisy must be called out. In fact, they should, pay reparations to India. If students, you are interested, I strongly advise you to watch a beautiful video. This is, I think, by MP Shashi Tharoor. Okay, Dr. Shashi Tharoor. He spoke at the Oxford Union debate, whether or not Britain should pay reparations to India. This is such a very powerful speech, okay, debate actually, delivered by Dr. MP Shashi Tharoor. I strongly advise you to watch that. This is what this is. Can you see here? Then, okay, you may say that, okay, at that time he did not know who, Macaulay, and that's why he wrote something like that. No, he knew. Even before that, this is exactly what William Jones felt about India, and he recorded this. William Jones was famously called the Oriental Jones. Can you see here? The language fascinated him. Okay, it was through him that the Europe came to know about Sanskrit. But what happened? They dismissed William Jones and many others who praised India for its wisdom. And then they used, look here, this is precisely, they decided India was never great. It can never be. Why? Because, there were two reasons. First, race, and second, religion. This is exactly made them believe that India can never be great. And that is the reason why we had English literature in India. You will be surprised to know English literature was introduced in India way before it was introduced in Oxford and Cambridge in England itself. Okay, so then this is actually what happened. I did my PhD in Bharidasan University, but at that time I was working in Jain Vishwavardi University. That is how I came in touch with Indian philosophy. I was absolutely astounded, okay, by the depth, by the insights, by the profundity of Indian philosophy. But I did not know anything about it. I completed my MPhil at that point in time. I was doing my PhD. In fact, initially when I was in Jawaharlal Nehru, I was in Delhi University as a student, I proposed a very different PhD title. I said it's a comparative study of Nietzsche and Sigmund Freud. That was my PhD title, okay? I was really surprised when I went to Jain Vishwavardi University that I was ready to, there is nothing wrong in studying Sigmund Freud and Friedrich Nietzsche. But I actually was surprised that I did not know much about our own philosophy. And then Professor N. Krishnaswamy was with me. He was also my supervisor, one of the supervisors, I would say. Then he suggested that I should study this. When I studied this, I was absolutely astounded by the insights and the profundity of our own philosophy. And I could not find it in the syllabus. Then when I explored the reasons, then I understood this, partly thanks to them also. Then we formed a syllabus, okay, in Jain Vishwavardi University. And I wrote also an article about that. And I'm going to share it with you for a while. That, 1 second. It's here. Just a minute. Okay, yeah, here it is. Okay, I published it in Bishop Weber College, the journal. It's called The Literary Explorer. Okay, you can see this. This is actually the article. It is very much there. Okay, I was really surprised. Oh my goodness. Now let's come to the neo-colonial aspect. Okay, I said, look at the Western theories. We teach them. Okay, postmodernism. And I found that there is a lot in Indian theories, something that is called Anekantvad, deconstruction. There is something called Siyadvad, existentialism, Sunyata, psychotherapy, meditation, okay, Epicurism, and here Charvaka, dualism, Dvaita, innatism, Vedanta. There are so many other philosophies, so tightly knit philosophies, okay? But where students don't know anything about this. It's not only about this. Let me tell you, it is also about the literary criticism. I was really shocked. Look at the literary criticism. Yeah, look here. This is a book, actually, Indian literary criticism from the past. Navarasas. Our Bharatanatyam, based on Bharata Muni's Natya Shastra. There are now rasas. You can use it for literary criticism. We study literary criticism of the West with absolutely no reference to our own literary criticism. Absolutely nothing. Literary theory, we teach postmodernism, deconstruction, so on and so forth, but no reference to our own systems. Why? Why this? Why this? I don't know. Look at the double standards. Because changes were made, okay, but the system that was introduced primarily by Macaulay was not undone completely. There were a few additions, literary theory, so on and so forth, but no effort was made to study who we are, what we are. So we only study what was produced by the West, thinking that they are the producers of knowledge and we are only the consumers of knowledge. It is not so. I am not against reading anything written by the West, okay? But I'm just saying that you should know what your position is. You must be rooted in your culture also, in your worldviews, so that you understand the West better. Otherwise, you are just swept by the current of the Western thought. And that is what is happening to most of the students. They think that we actually, like the only best way to live is to emulate the West. Okay, now here comes the I already told you about all these things. This is actually the result of neo-colonialism. Why? But India got freedom in 1947, as Kushwant Singh rightly put it. I'm going to use the words written by him. The white sahibs have already left, but the brown sahibs have occupied their spaces. And that is the reason why you don't see any change in the Indian scenario, especially when it comes to English departments. There are two things. ELT is such a major, powerful industry, but our departments have failed miserably. Our students are not capable enough to compete with the international workforce. Absolutely nothing. What do they read? How many wives did Shakespeare have? For example, I don't know. I'm just kidding. Okay, then how many books did he write? The characters, so very important to remember all the characters. This is so ridiculous, looking at the net questions. Okay, so ridiculous that it is not based on competence, just memory. A few questions you memorize, and now I know there are a few changes in the net education system. By and large, the syllabus remains the same. Okay, and after 10 standard, they can do a certificate course called CELTA for just a month, and then they can come and teach. And our students, after finishing MA, are still not fit enough to teach outside. Whose fault is that? It is the fault of our system. Because our system is still neo-colonial, it has not yet come out of the clutches of colonialism. Okay, now we teach literary theory, right? Okay, there is a great danger there. I'm going to now talk about that. Because I did my PhD on postmodernism. In fact, I was quite convinced that postmodernism is a great piece of theory. But then comes the change. In the recent days, postmodernism has taken a very different shape. And now it is called, in the US, it is called wokeism. I don't know how many of you are aware of that, the word woke. Okay, wokeism. So recently, the French education minister said that we have to fight this nonsense that is coming out of US universities. I completely agree with him. It is good that a country like France has the confidence to say and call out the nonsense that is coming out of the US universities. But India, as usual, okay, crawled under its belly. That is precisely what they did. They accepted this opinion without any questioning in the name of critical theories. Okay, they are so uncritical, and so they should not be called critical theories. Okay, let me point out this. This is what happened in Pune now. Look here. Pune college boys dress up in saris on traditional day to send message on gender equality. Is it really necessary? I don't know. I have nothing against it if somebody wants to wear saris. Okay, but is this how we establish gender equality? So they want to eradicate gender completely. So they say gender is just this woke school. I'm not just talking about traditional feminism. I'm just talking about this woke school. So they say that gender is some, like, what do they say? It is just fluid. Okay, anybody, I can become, just I have to say that I am a woman today. I feel like a woman, then you should call me a woman. So use pronouns like zim, zer, and zet. And if you refuse to use such pronouns, you become a bigot. And this is the nonsense that is being, sent to countries like India, who are ready to swallow anything that comes from the West, unquestioningly. Now look here, India NCERT proposed that there should be gender-neutral toilets at schools. Can you believe this? Okay, only one toilet for all. We can have a transgender toilet. I have nothing against it. But why should there be just one toilet for everybody? I don't just understand. And many other countries have already reported that girls have been actually harassed There are many other problems, privacy problems, but nobody seems to care. All they want is gender equality. Create what kind of equality is this? Just by establishing one toilet, can we create gender equality? Now look here. This is okay. This happened in Kerala. I am sure you read it, and this shocked the entire nation. Right? 1,000 were involved in this wife swapping racket. Okay. Now look here. We teach this in the name of literary theory, LGBTQ, polyamory. So some are naturally, so innately wired like this. So what to do? Just allow this to happen. What load of bullshit is this? And now I want to say, finally, this is precisely what is happening in the name of now wokeism, or what you call postmodernism, finally. Okay. Now the war on the West. This is a beautiful book. Very recently, the Oxford University professor, okay, who wrote the book, it's called The God Delusion, right? Richard Dawkins is a very, very well-known professor. He very recently actually said that all of us should go through this book by Douglas Murray, The War on the West. The problem, let me tell you what the problem is. Now, we all know that actually Black people have a problem. Black Lives Matter movement actually is very well known outside. Okay, well done. But very recently, they also pulled down the statue of Abraham Lincoln, who fought for the blacks. Why? Because they believe. Now, what is the problem? It is not racism alone which is a problem, but they believe Western civilization itself is racist. All white men are racist, okay, by design. So they can't simply change it. So what is the only way? The only way is to destroy them completely. So whiteness should be dismantled. The Western civilization must be dismantled. No, that is not the answer. And they have taken the same idea from there and then applied to India. Look here in India, post-Hindu India. I don't have to say anything. This was written by Kancha Illaya. Okay, and the name itself is enough. And they somehow believe that only by destroying here the Hinduness, somehow India can be changed. The idea comes from there, essentially. So you can't reform it because by definition, all Hindus are castes. Oh yeah, we have done a lot with, when it came to casteism. There is a problem, of course, yes. Okay, then to talk about the problem, we need another seminar. But much has been done already. We have given reservation. A lot of legal rights have been given to them. Yes, let's see that more can be done. But are you going to say that, so we have to completely demolish the system? So much, there is so much to say here, so much to speak. But by destroying it, oh my God, I can't even think about it. This is precisely what the literary theory, the so-called cultural studies departments and textbooks talk about by and large. That is their design. So we should be very careful. There are so many neo-colonial, neoliberal elements which are at play here in India right now. So my purpose of this particular talk is to warn, okay, students not to fall prey to these elements primarily. I am not, again, you read everything. Okay, of course, I believe your mental faculty of reasoning, but you can do so only when you are rooted. You know what your philosophy says, where your problems are. Our students study social history of England, but our students know nothing about the social history of India. What a ridiculous thing it is. The more I look back at our own syllabus, the more contempt I have for our colonial mindset. The colonial hangover should be put an end to. And that is the only way out for us to become a prosperous country. And I rest my case. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening us on the implications of ELT and the impacts of neo-colonialism on ELT. We did rethink the definition of an English teacher and the standardization of Indian English. It was surprising to learn about the expanse of the ELT industry worldwide, and thank you so much for making us enlightened about the lost pride and knowledge of Indian vernacular education. It is high time to revision and restructure ELT in India, from my perspective. So let's move on to the questions, sir. The floor is now open to questions online and offline.
Okay, so Are there any questions? And I think the voice is not very clear. I'm not able to hear well. So I'll be happy if you can type out the questions if there are any.
Sure, sir.
Questions?
Just a moment, sir. We type out.
Thank you so much for your wonderful comment. Thank you. I know you will be able to relate to this because I'm an Indian. This is how I feel as well. I feel so terribly bad. I feel a lot of injustice has been done to us as a country. And it is still being perpetuated in the name of education. A lot has to be decolonized in our system. Thank you. Sure, please. Okay, someone is talking about queer. No, I am not against it. I am just saying, okay, playfulness has been there. You will be really shocked to say that presently what we think, probably look most of the conservative culture primarily came from the Victorian culture. Okay, they were shocked at Khajuraho temple. Do you know when they went there, the Khajuraho temple, and saw the statues of Khajuraho? They were really shocked. The Westerners could not understand. And it is the same culture which produced Kama Sutra. Okay, so, and who wrote the Kama Sutra? It was written by a saint. Can you believe that? So we were a much more open culture in the past. I am not against openness. And I am not against transgender as well. Okay, because it is actually a thing of nature. It's whatever we call it. Some people have this problem. But how many are there? That is my question. Are you going to say that, very recently in the US, I shall put this problem this way. A man, okay, who actually was in the swimming contest, he came 125th or 126th as a man. Then he said, I am a woman now. He contested and he got gold medal. Can you believe this? So can I say today I feel like a woman, so I should be a woman and I can take part in the women contest? How ridiculous is this? So just by claiming that I am a woman, can I become a woman? They say that this is how it has to be. It is a gender fluidity. This is what I am against. Okay. But in the name of LGBTQ, okay, do not normalize certain things. Polyamory. No. Do not normalize sadism, masochism. You must see this. Are you going to, in the past, it was considered, it's just very simple that I want to, for example, if somebody gets pleasure, the word sadism comes from Marcus de Sade. Do you have any idea? This guy used to beat all the women, okay, with a whip. And that is how he got pleasure from. Today, they say that sadism is part of this. How ridiculous. So yeah, it is absolutely necessary that first of all, we are rooted, and then we said we are not going to accept everything like that. Polyamory, sadism, masochism, these are, okay, 6 states of mind, and we are going to call it that way. That is my point. I am not against it. I am not saying that in India we have, Tirunangai, we go to Kuvam. I'm sorry, it is not Kuvam. What is that place near Viduppuram, where annually they hold this ceremony? What is the name of the place? I forgot. It doesn't. No.
Somewhere near Viduppuram.
Yeah, somewhere near Viduppuram, right? Kuaham, I forget. Every year they conduct something else. In fact, you remember this actually, it is there in our own literature. So I am not against it. I am just saying, because what can they do? It is not their fault. But through the back door, don't try to actually normalize all kinds of sexual behavior, especially the perversions and the pervert acts. Do not try to normalize it. That's what I'm saying. Thank you. So how do I contact you on social media? I am not on social media. I think I don't use Facebook. I am there, but I have never used it. But you can write to me. My email ID, I'm going to write here. If you want to get in touch with me, you can write an email to me. This is my official email ID. I'm writing it in the chat box. So if you want to get in touch with me, please. Thank you. And someone else asked about that, about to our research students, useful research to our students about bilingual language students. I don't understand the question. What exactly is your question? I don't know who asked this question about bilingual language students. What kind of research? If the question is made clear to me, I will be able to respond also clearly. Okay, the question is not clear to me, but I would suggest something that if you don't want to speak up now, you can write an email to me, to my email address, pardi@ict.edu.o. Okay, are there any other questions?
That's all, sir. I'll now hand over the mic to Dr. Shobna.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to first of all introduce Elt in my own way, as I know him. And it's because I feel that it's about the duty to do that. It's because, as you all know, that he was the one who initiated the whole idea of running this kind of a conference. But for his personality, as someone I've seen him grow from greenhorn UG student to a PhD, and one who went to work in the Jain University and all that. I think I rely totally on his personality. He's coming up in life, the tough path he walked through, but bravely. As a personality that would help me in fixing the speakers and arranging all these sessions, and especially in conceiving a proper, relevant to the day's needs kind of a title, the need for professionalism in English language teaching. That was born, of course, out of what Dr. Ilambaradi was talking to me informally about is, again, his anguish about colonialism and neo-colonialism and how they affect English language teaching abroad, here, everywhere. Exactly what was spelled out by Dr. Ali Aliza yesterday, whose key words were democracy and critical thinking. All of us would agree to that. And so, the end of the day has not ended, but I feel a lot gratified. The conference is going on in the right direction. It's taking up, it strides in the right direction. And I was just telling my colleagues that it sounds like a faculty development program meant chiefly for the teachers of English. And thank you so much, Ilambaradi, the kind of initiation that you gave me. And I knew you are the first person that I can so easily rely on, is because I've seen you grow from step to step, from a government college, government school student to, you did your maths and English work in the government school, I know, Sembarai, and thanks to those teachers, you should be bowing your head to those teachers of English and mathematics in that school, which took you to such great heights, and a long association with Dr. Krishna Swami, I still remember, shaped you up later on. Hope I'm audible. Bandi, am I audible?
Ma'am,
Am I audible?
you are audible, ma'am, but I am not able to hear clearly. But I actually get what you're saying, ma'am.
Okay.
That's why I come forth to listen to you. It's not very
I'm
clear.
just describing the personality as I have watched the long association that you had with Professor Krishna Swami, and how your philosophy would have been shaped thanks to that association. I still remember he was your guru, and he was an ardent follower. Your critical thinking took shape because of the association, I still remember, and all that. The result of it is that he is now able to reflect on how English language teaching looks like in India and in Oman. And I'm really deeply thankful on behalf of staff and students that I have relied on and have been successful in planning out this conference. And I'm looking forward to doing many such collaborative projects in future. Thank you very much,
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your kind words.
Yes.
It is my honor. It's my pleasure and privilege to be with
Staff and
Vishnu College.
students. Yes, yes. What I advise to students, reading makes it all. He was an able reader. And he was all the time knowledge grave, knowledge crammed also sometimes. I see a lot of clarity that has gone into your
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
cognizance of knowledges.
Thank you, ma'am.
From India to Omani philosophy. Thank you, Tupaladi.
So nice of you, ma'am. Thank you so much for the opportunity also. And I am really very happy that I have been able to meet all these scholars and students at Bishop Weber College. My pleasure. I am really very happy. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, thank you. Our students will write to you definitely. They seem to have a lot of questions. They'll seek clarifications from you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, may I leave, ma'am?
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.